So this is what? This is a Scarlett issue 1 and 2 discussion.
Yeah. Have you read issue 2?
I have read issue 2.
Okay, good. If you hadn't, it was going to be an issue 1 discussion.
Yes.
Agent Scarlett, Agent Scarlett. She's the one who infiltrates the Arashikage, the ninja clan. She's a sergeant, Agent Scarlett. Grady 5 is on her file card. Clip it and save.
Hey, it's me, Mark, coming to you live and direct from the Energon universe once again. You are listening to Talking Joe, and if you are new to Talking Joe, you can find out all of the details over at the website, which is talkingjoe.co.uk. Now, today we will be talking about Scarlett 1 and 2, released 5th of June and 3rd of July 2024. As always, we will be relatively spoilery, so if you have not yet read the issues, beware spoilers ahead. And today, joining me as not always, it's a real English chief. It's the Chief Doggy Dog, Chief Stride.
Whoa, Nelly, what am I doing here? I've strayed onto the wrong podcast. I thought I was about to do an episode of Talking Nuts, a Peanuts podcast, a most excellent show that I co-host, but that's later on. No, listen, I am here on Talking Joe by request of the main man, Funky Bunch. Happy to be here.
Very good. For those, sort of less used to Chief being on one of these, it's been a while since you've been on a regular old show talking about an actual issue. I think the last one was back in the day, the final part of Snake Hunt, which I think was issue 275 of ARA, which kind of broke you.
That is when I said no more, Mrs. And luckily for all the listeners out there, I jumped off and Mark jumped into the hot seat of main co-host, or main host, I should say. And what a fabulous job he is doing. So, yes.
Thank you, Chief. So those have been missing with you. What's your recap of all of the different media channels that you've been venturing into since those days?
Like I say, I'm still doing a podcast, Talking Nuts. I think we're about 40 odd issues in on that. That is a 12.5-year podcast journey because we are covering all 50 years of Charles Schultz's magnum opus, The Peanuts newspaper strip, and we cover 1 month every week. And considering it ran for 50 years, divide that by 4, we're looking at 12.5 years to do that, and we're about a year in. So that's not too bad.
Nelly.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm not really doing much.
Very good. Inside Chief's mind is empty. So you have been reading the Energon books with the Skybound relaunch. You haven't been digging them quite as much as me, but when Scarlett came out, you said you're a fan of this one. So it's a
let's do a little short digression here, a little Reader's Digest, just so people know whether to completely ignore my opinions coming up or whether to back them 100%. So, listen, I am a G.I. Joe fan. I'm not going to deny that, shy away from that. I am a G.I. Joe fan. However, the state of mind I'm in, which is kind of a sad, depressive mode right now. I'm a bit of a nihilist. I don't really care about anything, or I don't believe in anything. If you said to me, there's no more G.I. Joe comics ever going to be made, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. I'd say, actually, that's not a bad thing. Because for me personally, I only need the Marvel run and the first, 13, 19 issues or whatever of IDW's Cobra. That's all I need. I actually don't need any other G.I. Joe books. So these ones that I'm now reading, and even though I am partially enjoying them, if you were to take them all away and say there's going to be never again be a new G.I. Joe comic, I wouldn't care. Wouldn't bother me in the slightest. So that's where I'm coming from in my G.I. Joe love/not love/don't careness.
Mm-hmm. Because you feel like the best has already been produced,
Yeah,
and how
I
could
feel
anything
like
possibly live up to that?
When someone goes and watches a new movie at the cinema and, they come out and they're like, it wasn't that good. I know it's not going to be good. Why do I need to watch anything else except for Jaws, Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Rocky? I don't need to watch anything else. I don't need to watch these junk Disney Star Wars shows because they will never, ever be as good as watching episodes 4, 5 and 6. So why bother? Kind of like with G.I. Joe or comics in general. I do read, having said that, I do read quite a lot of modern comics, although there are no Marvel comics on my pull list anymore. I think there's two DC books now on my pull list, and the rest is made up generally of Boom, IDW, Dark Horse, Image, etc. So there you go.
That we did go inside your mind.
We did. Sorry,
We did.
listeners.
Never mind. So
I'm going to interject again here into what I'm reading from this universe. So I am.
Okay.
I know it's not part of the Energon, but I am reading A-Ra, and that is junk. I was reading Transformers, but I dropped that on number 6. Massive Daniel Ryan Johnson fan. Love Do a Powerbomb. Extremity is great. Murder Falcon was great. I pretty much enjoy everything he's done, apart from Transformers, which I think is his weakest writing by far, and his art really did not do it for me on this book at all. If you're going to read Transformers, I have read all of Transformers UK, which is much better than Transformers US Marvel, although the Jeff Senior Simon Furman period of US Transformers, Marvel Transformers was good. But for me, the only real Transformers you need to read is the IDW Transformers run when John Barber and James Roberts were writing, and Alex Milne was on art, and I think Andrew Griffiths, later Jack Lawrence. But that is the Transformers run that you only need. So the modern Transformers, I think the storytelling's weak. I think the art is weak. So I dumped that. Void Rivals, I am still getting. Read issue 10 the other day. I think I enjoy it, but like all Robert Kirkman stuff, it is meandering, and I don't really know what's he done in 10 issues? Not much, really. But I'll continue to get that for a few more issues. I'll finish out this arc. And then read Duke, loved issue 1, and then it kind of went downhill for me. Cobra Commander, did enjoy. I'll give that a solid 6.5 out of 10. That's a high mark.
which is a normal person's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, but people overrate everything.
Yep.
Average 5. So if it's above 5, that means it's above average. That means it's good. But people say, average 7 out of 10. No, 7 out of 10 is excellent. Cobra Commander. Yeah, so then read the first 2 issues of Scarlett. And didn't enjoy 2 as much as 1, I don't think. Although maybe I did, I'm not sure.
Well, let's get into it. So it's coming to us from the creative team of writer Kelly Thompson, the chief and Tim spoke to not too long ago. Artist Marco Ferrari, who is relatively new to the world of comics. His big title so far is an Image title called Frontiersman. Colorist Lee Lowridge from the likes of Fables. Letterer Russ Wooten, and editor is Ben Abernathy, who's on a lot of these Energon titles. On covers, Tim has recorded some thoughts for us. Actually, I should mention Tim is away visiting family as at the time of recording, hence he is not here today. But he did record some thoughts on the Scarlett #1 covers, so let's hear those.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Thanks, Mark. I'm in a hotel phone booth, a very fancy one, in California. Let's talk some covers. Scarlett cover A for issue 1 is drawn by Marco Ferrari, the series artist. It's Scarlett walking toward us. The camera is lower than waist height, so we are slightly looking up at her. She's cropped, so we see her from the knees up. She is striding toward us in a calm and confident way. Her facial expression is relaxed and a little unknowable. She's not making an expression. She's looking at us or slightly above and past us. In her right hand, she's holding her crossbow that she gains in this issue, and she's holding it in a relaxed way. Similarly, in her left hand, she's holding 4 crossbow bolts, and she is holding them in a relaxed way. Background is almost all light blues, a little bit of white, a little bit of purplish. It's a winter scene. We're in the mountains. She's walking on a field of snow. Behind her are 3 mountain peaks, one of which is taller than the rest. On top of it is a feudal Japanese architectural building. A bunch of sunlight is hitting it from off-panel left, and that's where the sort of purplish for the background, pinkish purplish, is. And then down here on the sort of plateau of snow to the right is a Japanese arch, the kind that you'd walk under. So the background is suggesting that this is the Arashikage stronghold. There's one detail on this cover that is both helpful and I think also a little too much and not my favorite compositional element. On the bottom quarter of the panel, under her hand, in the snow, is the Arashikage symbol, the hexagram with the 6 broken red lines. And the style of it in the snow is either that it's blood or paint, like from a stencil. Neither of them works for me. I understand, like blood in the snow is a dramatic visual, and we certainly saw that to effect in the opening pages of Cobra Commander issue number 1, where another recognizable G.I. Joe symbol was seemingly splattered by accident, not by stencil, in the snow. So I like the idea here, but I think once you actually do it and think about it, it sort of falls apart because blood doesn't fall that way, and why would someone paint this? And also, if it's going to be like a thing in the snow, like if this were a cover where Scarlett is much, much, much smaller, and we were looking down at her, and, she were like on her knees, looking up, screaming in anger or agony, and there was a giant symbol, whatever it is, a star, the hexagram, the Cobra symbol, the Superman logo, all in the snow, and it was much, much, much bigger, I think it would sort of move past not making sense. But here it's almost an afterthought. So I like it. I don't actually think it works. But this is a neat cover, and it nicely sells the book. Cover B is drawn by Joelle Jones, who I most know from writing and drawing the opening year or so of Catwoman at DC a couple years ago. Also Lady Killer at Dark Horse. This one is a montage. Scarlett is full body, but sort of jumping, reacting, leaping. Behind her is Jinx, head and shoulders, holding a sword, big, and then 2 helicopters, and the moon, and a little lens flare, and some mountains, and a Japanese feudal building, and an arch, and some ninja on the bottom, and it's snowy, and the ninja are in gray. If you wanted your comic book cover to look like a movie poster, this is it. And this is a good cover for this issue. I don't like it as much because it has Jinx on it, and if you haven't read any of the previews, Jinx showing up is a fun surprise. Also, as far as Joelle Jones' drawings go, I feel like I have liked her work when she's focusing on fewer elements, and this one has a lot going on. So just in terms of her actual mark making, I think her stuff is bolder when it's, say, just the cover of, Catwoman number 1 or one of the Lady Killer collections. Cover C is drawn by Gleb Melnikov, who has been doing a bunch of work at DC recently, including some Superman and some Shazam. This one, compared to the previous 2, Scarlett is much smaller, and she is full body, but here she's got a helmet on, and she's riding a purple motorcycle, and she's got her crossbow. It's much bigger on this cover, and she's sort of zooming into the air to the right with an explosion coming from the left. Behind her, all the sky and a bit of the sort of street is all a singular blue, 2 cars, and another motorcycle chasing her. And then in the background behind them, over the horizon line of this sort of, we're looking over a road hill where cars would leap over it, are some buildings. And it's all a nighttime scene. I like this cover. It doesn't tell me, I know that cover A doesn't tell me a lot about what's happening in the issue, but this one feels even more like it could have been sort of the cover to any issue. And I don't remember anything about motorcycles in this issue. I also don't think your lead character should be this small on an issue number 1 cover and have a helmet on that obstructs so much of their face and hair when that's sort of a signature visual element. But you know what this is? This is a really good splash page. This is page 1 of an issue of Scarlett. That said, it's a nice drawing with some nice coloring. Cover C, I should say that was the 1 in 10 variant. That was C. Cover D is the 1 in 25 variant. This is digitally drawn and painted by Steve Epting. Beautiful. It's quite simple. It's very much in keeping with the 1 in 25 variants we've seen so far in the G.I. Joe Energon universe. There's a G.I. Joe or Cobra character. We see them, full body or sort of 2/3 full body with a 1982 Hector Garrido style explosion behind them with very, very little black. We're much closer to Scarlett on this one than some of the other Energon universe explosion back variant covers we've seen. Scarlett's hair is blowing a bit in the wind. She is not lit by this explosion, but she does have a little bit of rim light on her torso and face. She's looking straight ahead at us, determined. She's holding her crossbow. There's a slight shift where her torso is turning away from us, but she is looking straight ahead at us. It's cool, and it's quite bold. If it wasn't a variant, it would have made for a great, A cover that I'd be happy to put on my shelf at my shop. Cover E is the 1 in 50 variant, and this is my favorite cover of Scarlett #1. It's drawn by Leonardo Romero, who has been working with Kelly Thompson over at DC and drew the first 4 or 5 or 6 issues of the current Birds of Prey monthly. Romero also did Hawkeye with Kelly Thompson. Am I remembering that right? Romero has a really lovely simplified style, which is very much in this Tom Riley, Chris Samnee, post-Alex Toth style. And it is Scarlett leaning up against a wall with her head against it as if she's about to peer around a corner in a doorway and maybe leap out. And on the other side, Stalker is doing the same. Stalker! Surprise! Stalker is doing the same thing. Scarlett has her crossbow, and it's loaded, and she's also holding 2 arrows in her left hand. Stalker has his machine gun at the ready up close to his head, holding it with both hands. In terms of anatomy, you actually see very little of Stalker. You see his head, bits of his hands, an arm, just a little sliver of torso and leg. Scarlett, you see 2/3 of. This. What really wins this cover, everyone, what really wins this cover is the composition, the boldness of the composition and the drawing, the placement of black ink. So Scarlett is wearing her sort of normal new costume, gray and mustard, but the gray stuff, the jumpsuit, is inked almost entirely in black, and then just at the edges are highlight spaces where a color can be. But because the coloring on this cover is predominantly green, the green sort of matches, and Stalker is his normal green, but then Scarlett has a lot of green on her. And if you haven't seen this cover from my description, you might think that doesn't work. Scarlett shouldn't be green. I assure you it works, because green becomes almost the, quote, white of this cover, like the sort of white of the paper. The highlight from a different window on this door edge is a green. The blinds behind Scarlett are a green. And then you see just a few other details in the background. There's a little bit of a desk that Scarlett's in front of, a little bit of a framed picture, a little bit of a jar or a vase. I think this is the scene from the issue where she's in her house and he's confronting her. So sort of she's on defense and he's on invasion offense. She's got a great look on her face. Her hair is just a little tousled. There's a tautness to both their poses. Gosh, I love this cover, and I would talk about it for another several minutes. I'll just say one last thing in terms of bold composition. The triangle that's made from the sort of left half of Scarlett's crossbow, where her eye appears in the sort of left corner of this triangle, so the way that it sort of bisects her face at a diagonal. What a great cover. And that's the 1 in 50. Cover F is the 1 in 100. This is drawn by John Boy Myers. Myers has this sort of more cartoony style. I have always thought he's a little influenced in the sort of post Todd McFarlane era, sort of the J. Scott Campbell era. That may not be fair or accurate, but that's what I've always seen. And, he's been doing G.I. Joe covers now for more than 10 years, a little bit here and there. He did some for IDW. This one is Scarlett and Storm Shadow mid-air fighting as if they're sort of falling or swinging because the background is at a diagonal, nighttime city skyscraper buildings. So you just sort of see the like glowing whites of all the different banks of windows, and then the sort of black, or in this case, medium dark blue of the buildings themselves sort of just becomes this sort of abstraction of like checkerboard pattern or grid pattern, window building stuff. But all around them, these two figures in the foreground, broken glass and bullets hitting stuff, as if maybe they've just crashed out of an office building and they're starting to fall. Their action poses are great. She's got a dagger and a pistol. He's got a sword and his version 2 climbing claw Wolverine thing. Very fun, cool cover. This was a spoiler, so we didn't see this until it showed up at comic book stores, because Storm Shadow's appearance in the issue is a surprise. The 1/250 variant cover is painted by David Mack. It's in keeping with previous David Mack variants for Energon Universe. In the foreground, Scarlett, no background here. Scarlett is waist up. She's twisted away from us. She's looking diagonally past us. She's got her arm close to her face. She's holding up a pistol. Her hair is pretty tousled. And then behind her, sort of over her shoulder in a bit of a montage style, is Storm Shadow in perfect profile, holding a sword. We just see his head to waist. And then the negative space around them is the sort of signature David Mack white of the paper with some, soft watercolor colors becoming other soft watercolor covers. This is going on a long time. Cover H is blank. Cover I is the Jason Howard 4-part connecting, which also connects with Destro 1, this month's issue of Transformers, this month's issue of Void Rivals. It's in color. And then cover J is the black and white version. These two Jason Howard ones are not ratioed variants. Your comic book store could order as many or as few as they wanted. And these 4 covers together are every G.I. Joe, Transformer, and Void Rivals character we've seen so far in the comics. So the Scarlett one is in the foreground, Scarlett, but it's very much a sort of, everyone is sort of about the same size. So behind Scarlett are 2 of the Dreadnoks, and Rock and Roll, and Zorana, and Soundwave, and a Bat, and Devastator, and a Quintesson, and Reflector, and half of Astro Train. Lots of really fun diagonals. Jason Howard's work it's that, that like invincible Skybound style of like not a lot of details, but a lot of sort of animation, angular shapes. And those are the covers.
So all in, regular covers, second printings, everything else, 23 covers for issue 1. And I'm sure with extra printings, there could even be more to come.
Wow.
So they have gone wild. For issue number 2, the covers I thought were really strong. The main cover by Marco Ferrari, which is a sort of close-up of Scarlett holding a sort of sword almost in the eye of... is it Eye of Omens from... Sword of Omens from Thundercats. Thundercats.
Eye of Thundera.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't think it's that striking, but it's competent. There's a Carl Kerschel Storm Shadow and Scarlet variant, which has got a lot of energy to it. Cover C, 1 in 10, Gleb Melinkov connecting variant, less exciting. Cover D, 1 in 25, Paulo Rivera cover with the exploding background, like the card art. Yep. Nicely done. Big fan of Paulo Rivera. I think he signed on thinking that he was going to paint Scarlett, but did end up with Storm Shadow on this one, because I think Scarlett was on the issue 1. The G.I. Joe Netherlands page, gijoe.nl, they did a great write-up all about the process for that cover, so check that out. And I thought the cover E, Annie Wu variant, was the most interesting for me. Full profile of Scarlett, stood up, sort of releasing the ropes from her arms, so tying into the story inside, which is always good. Ninjas sort of scattered about her feet, and this kind of white space from those sort of Japanese sort of paper walls behind her. Very, very striking cover. Probably my favourite of the lot.
Yeah, I seem to notice that they are having strong artists do the variant covers. I'm not talking about the retail exclusives. I'm just talking about the main kind of ABC and then the incentives. But they are getting a good list of artists across all the books.
Indeed. So let's get into the plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
In Monaco, Agent Scarlett infiltrates a swanky party where she is there to gather intel on some hostages, but not to engage. Scarlett spots her friend Jinx, who has been missing for 2 years, ever since she went on a mission to infiltrate the Arashikage clan. Scarlett disobeys orders and intervenes to help with the rescue of the hostages who are being sold in a slave auction. Scarlett's proactive actions put her in line of fire with her superiors. She returns home to find Stalker, who is there with an offer to find Jinx and the weapon that the Arashikage have. Scarlett is dropped off by helicopter by Snowjob, and she infiltrates the Arashikage compound with the help of the secret code that she developed with Jinx. Defeating several swordsmen along the way, she bows before the Hard Master with an offer. She is cut short with a blow to the head from none other than Storm Shadow.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
Later, Scarlett awakens tied to a chair, and using a hidden razor blade, she escapes, taking down 5 Arashikage ninja, impressing Storm Shadow. To prove her qualities to the Arashikage, she is sent on a mission to retrieve the ultimate weapon from a high-rise building in Tokyo. We're left on a cliffhanger as Scarlett makes the leap from the top floor into the belly of the tower. Dun dun dun. So, Chiefy.
Yes.
This is your favourite of the Energon universe titles so far. What is it about this issue you think that does it for you?
Well, I will say that I think all of the issue ones have started okay, and I will preface it by saying that the views of Chiefy do not necessarily reflect the views of Talking Joe.
Right. Thanks
as a nominal 1 in 100 episodes guest, I get to have a free reign and say what I really think.
Okay.
I quite like looking at the cover. I quite like the arrowhead in the Scarlet A.
Yeah, it's a good logo design, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it's
a bit
notches
thoughtful.
taking out the other letters.
Yeah, notches a bit like the back of the arrow, whatever you did call that.
Yeah,
the arrow flight.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one. So I like I think it's just a good combination of fast flowing action and the artist who, again, like you said, I'm not familiar with his work prior to this. Frontiersman was the book you mentioned. I haven't read that or even looked at it, but you do see I see some touches of Daniel Warren Johnson in some of his art. I think especially in issue 2, which we'll probably come on to, where she's kicking chairs at enemy ninjas, and it's got kind of that fuzzy lined edges.
It seems quite a popular kind of style to kind of represent that like moving object now. Those fuzzy, the kinetic sort of fuzzy lines. I'm seeing that quite a lot across the piece. I think artists are picking up on the likes of Daniel Warren Johnson using that and adapt and incorporating into their own work.
Good use of flashbacks here, not overly done. We get action, we get intrigue. It's just I really like the first issue. I like the fact they introduced Storm Shadow in issue 1 and didn't hold him back. I don't know what purpose that would serve, holding him back. So better to have him in the first issue for me, and then you can actually develop him or find out a bit more about the route they're going to take with him from issue 1 onwards.
I keep on thinking that they're going to have like a slower drip of some of these key characters into the books than we're actually seeing, but they're like, no, all in, just chuck all of those key characters, get them in, get it done. I mean, not they're not doing all 300, but some of those key characters like Storm Shadow, I did suspect initially that they would be holding him back as a bit more of a mystery, but no, bang, in with the cliffhanger to issue 1 of Scarlet. Here he is.
Yeah. I think it felt like as well. I mean, you could, yeah. I like the way that the characters we know as G.I. Joe characters have been introduced. And it's quite subtle. So you've got Stalker. Okay, fine. We've seen him in the Duke book. We've got Storm Shadow. We know who Storm Shadow is. And you get Jinx. But apart from that, and Snowjob, but they're minorish roles in terms of their page time. So without those, it could just be a generic spy thriller kind of book, which I'm not opposed to. From me personally, again, this is me personally, I don't want all these books to be Joe. For me, that's just, we've seen it before, it's just overkill. So I like the fact that those characters are kept as minorish roles in the background, and I would want that to continue. Obviously, it's not going to, because it's all going to culminate with a big G.I. Joe book. I would rather they just kept doing miniseries myself,
right.
But they're not going to sell as well as a big G.I. Joe #1, so that's fine. But I do like the fact that, yes, Stalker pops up, but he doesn't dominate the story.
Yeah.
And Jinx is there, but she's in the current stuff, she's only in a few pages, whereas her main stuff is in the flashbacks.
That's right. It's an interesting point that if you were to just do a bit of trimming in the edit, you could just remove some of those references to Stalker and Storm Shadow, and it could be a non-G.I. Joe book without too much.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing I like. I did like the fact they kept it with a light touch. So I want some G.I. Joe stuff in there. I don't want it to be a generic spy thriller, but I think the amount in issue 1 that they use would just hit the spot for me. So who is this Major Gorman douche that Scarlett has? So like you say, Scarlett is in Monaco. There's some kind of human trafficking going on.
Yeah.
Do we know these are just generic bad guys who are human trafficking? Not that there's good guy human traffickers.
Seems to be.
Yeah, and
they talk about. I think talk about someone called Bartleby as he's the buyer. Yep. I wondered if that was an Easter egg reference to the rat creature from Bone, because he's the only Bartleby that I've ever heard of.
Great,
before.
love Bone. That's a great book. If you haven't read that, Jeff Smith, go out and buy it and read it. It's good.
But I think this is a sort of generic set up someone disposable that we'll probably never see again. Similarly, her boss, that great big douchebag who's like, observe, don't want you doing anything, using your actual skills, helping people. Major Gorman. Yeah, goddamn Gorman, as she says.
Yeah, the only Gorman I know is Gorman from Aliens, and he's the guy who is escorting them to the drop site.
Okay.
Been on no combat missions.
There's also Dave Gorman, who's
I like Dave Gorman. He's funny.
Comedian.
Yeah.
Who is Dave Gorman? Yeah. So Google it.
But anyway, so
I thought, what an introduction! First few pages.
Yes.
Scarlett emerging from the seas in the wetsuit, unzipping, getting into this sort of killer green gown, ready to get into the dinner party. And did you pick up on? Because I know you're a fan. I know you're a fan. You're a fan of the Roger Moore James Bond.
Oh, he's the only James Bond.
the start to James Bond Connery in Goldfinger. It starts with him emerging from the sea in a wetsuit to unzip it and reveal a perfectly pressed ivory white dinner jacket underneath. So
that is very, very good. However, Roger did top that in Octopussy when he goes to a dinner meeting in a full suit underneath a wetsuit, but he goes disguised as a fake crocodile. There's a crocodile swimming across the lake, and then the mouth opens up, and there's Roger in the crocodile. Anyway,
he has to go one better, doesn't he?
What does the star represent on the shoulder? Anything or nothing of her jacket? Her wetsuit. There's a star there. Does that mean anything or not?
Maybe it's a generic agent, super spy agent type star. I don't know that I'd read too much into it. We know that stars do play a role in the G.I. Joe logo, but she's not there yet.
Or maybe it's just a shuriken symbolization.
Could be a tip of the hat to the shuriken that appears on her main costume. Good point. Yes. There's a similar James Bond emerging from the sea type thing that might be referenced here, which is in a scene from Commando, where I know another of your favourite films, Schwarzenegger rocks up to a beach in a kind of dinghy thing, and then he gears up, he puts on his clothes, he's sort of knife in the sheath, pistol in the holster, put on the grenades, lace up the boots. So very similar to that kind of, pocket mirror, makeup on,
Sure.
shoes on,
Written by
gun load.
comic writer Jeff Loeb, who I met at MCM Comic Con last month and had a chat to him about that Commando film he wrote. But yes, so a good opening gambit. You don't need any words on these pages, like you say. As she's getting ready, she means business, and then boom, she's gone to infiltrate. She's obviously got some kind of fake identification which lets her into this high-class event. And the other thing I liked, I've written down here, is compressed storytelling. Now, my favourite comic and the greatest comic of all time, no one will ever be able to tell me otherwise, is 2000 AD. There will never be, much as I love G.I. Joe, it ain't as good as 2000 AD, which is the greatest comic of all time and ever will be. But that is very compressed storytelling, because you've got writers and artists telling stories in 4 to 6 pages sometimes. And what you get here is a lot of compressed storytelling, which I like. So by the end of this issue, she's already in Japan at the gates of the Arashikage, whereas some books, okay, I know it's a mini-series, so you've got X amount of issues, but some books that might have, Robert Kirkman would have taken 6 issues to get her to Japan. But here, compressed, and we don't need to see how she got into the event. So she just, from getting into a dress, next kind of scene, you see her walking in. And I'm absolutely fine with it. I love that.
Next panel, she's in that cavern, and then Scarlett in position. Don't need to worry about the rest of it. Just skip to it. Yeah. But you learn a lot from this opening scene about that. She's very competent. She's getting out in and out undetected. But she's not willing to sit on the sidelines. She's a bit savvy with a crossbow. She's not interested in sort of playing political games or doing what's best for her career. She's kind of wanting to be, a good guy, do the right thing, regardless of personal consequences for her. Yeah, for sure. She's got something in mind, and that is if Jinx wasn't involved. Oh no, she doesn't know Jinx is there, does she? Of course, because it's a surprise, isn't it?
When she sees her, actually, this is a question that you can relate to Tim for me, because he will be a bit more better versed to answer it, because he's more of a comic book historian. Jinx, when she sees Jinx, close up of Scarlett's face, she's done a gasp. The handler on the other end, I'm assuming it's Gorman, says agent, and then she has a thought bubble, and she says it's Jinx, or she thinks it's Jinx, because she can't believe she's seen her. Now there's a cat coming up into the loft. There's a cat coming into the loft. He's all right.
Up the ladder. That's good going.
He's come up the ladder, and he's been crying apparently at the top of the ladder, so the missus has opened the loft hatch and let him up. And she says she thinks it's Jinx. Now, that is the only thought bubble in the issue. And thought bubbles are a storytelling mechanic in comics that were prevalent in all the way up to the late 80s, early 90s. And then they almost disappeared from, I would say, the mid-90s onwards. They almost, to a comic, no one used the thought bubble as a mechanic in comic storytelling anymore. Jason Aaron has interestingly started using it again in some of his current work. So it's a question for Tim to go and do some research for me, because I'm too lazy, and tell me roughly when the thought bubble to the year died out and why.
Okay, let's see. I'll ask Tim, and if I get a reply, I'll insert it here.
It's a new segment called Tim's Thoughts on Thought Balloons. This is not a scientific survey, but I feel like 1986, 1987 are a big moment for word balloons, thought balloons, and also sound effects starting to drop out of mainstream comics because of Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, and Mouse. I don't think that word balloons, thought balloons, and sound effects look unsophisticated or juvenile, but there have been 30 years of newspaper and magazine articles with titles and headlines like "Bang, Boff, Sock. Comics aren't just for kids anymore." And then it's some article about some new graphic novel that's sophisticated and, it's for grown-ups. And I guess comics have been for, kids all this time. So you even see in that sort of format that sound effects, and I think by extension, thought balloons, are grouped in a certain way. I would make a comparison from that same era of the 1989 Batman movie adaptation with regular Batman comics from around that time, the Batman movie adaptation has no thought balloons and no sound effects. And I guess it looks more sophisticated. I remember reading it at the time. Something about it seemed fancy because of those two decisions. And I don't know that editors at various publishers in the late 80s had specific rules like no thought balloons, no sound effects. I wouldn't be surprised. It may have just been, a bunch of comics started a trend and many, many comics followed it. But here's one more thing to think about. If you don't have thought balloons, the reader can still know what the protagonist is thinking via narration captions. You're reading an issue of Wolverine, and every few panels at the beginning of a scene or throughout it, there are some boxes in the upper left of some panels where this is what Wolverine is thinking. And the problem with that is that favors, or maybe it can then only work for the protagonist. If you're reading such a comic that's written in the first person, and then all of a sudden there's a thought balloon for a villain, you're sort of treating the format inconsistently. If everyone gets thought balloons and it's third person omniscient, then the reader knows what everyone's thinking and everyone has sort of the same visual language for what they're thinking. And if we know what everyone's thinking, no one has to speak conspicuously aloud about what they're thinking. I used to tell my students that sound effects and thought balloons are 2 more tools in your toolkit, and you should use them. It is surprising to see a few occasional balloons in G.I. Joe comics, but not unwelcome. And that's Tim's thoughts on thought balloons.
Or he can just answer it in the next episode.
Yeah. I noticed that as well. So yeah, that thought bubble, and it's not a bubble; it's a kind of a square, a thought square.
Boxed.
Normally, a bubble would be sort of more of that sort of cloudy shape. And I've actually heard Kelly Thompson in an interview talking about thought bubbles and saying that they're kind of relevant devices that they kind of make sense about using, but you can't really use them in modern comics because nobody does, and so they would stand out and sort of take you out of the story and make, start questioning it being used and it being a bit hokey. So it's, it is the only time that it uses. She does a lot of internal narration. She does a bit of talking to herself. So this is the only time it is used. And you still kind of have thought bubbles, but nowadays it's either they talk to themselves or it's just a kind of narration box of in some form, or if you're Batman, maybe you're writing your diary to yourself or something.
I'll tell you what, I have just noticed that I didn't spot on first read through. Her glasses have got a camera lens in them. I've just realised, because where she says she spotted the symbol, the Arashikage symbol on Jinx's upper thigh, and then she says to the handler, any word on that symbol. And I'm reading it now thinking, what is he seeing through her glasses? But on the previous page, there's loads of tick, tick, tick. Yeah. And I think she's activating some kind of camera on her glasses.
That's right. That panel with the tattoo on her leg is an interesting one because we've seen this little sequence a few times before in like early previews. They've been made available online, and I think in even the back of some of the books. And this panel has been redrawn because previously that cut on the dress was a lot more sheer and it went further up her body, making you think that maybe Jinx is indeed a commando specialist because you could see a lot of that leg. So interesting that it has been redrawn to kind of tone it down a little bit.
Interesting.
There's a potential error detected, which isn't an error detected, but might make you think there is, which is that Scarlett is saying, I recognize this symbol, but can't place it. It's a tattoo on Jinx's leg. And you think, well, if you're, best friends, know each other so well, obviously you'd know if she had a tattoo like that on her leg.
Yes.
But the obvious answer to this is that she has been missing for 2 years, and this tattoo is a recent addition since she saw her last.
Correct. Yes.
There's a lot that happens in this first issue. And it was kind of only in retrospect, thinking about it, that part of the reason it feels so full is because it's a 30-page issue at $4.99, a bigger issue than issue 2. So that explains why it feels like more goes on.
Who are these goons attacking the event?
I think it's the Arashikage with the swords and whatnot, along with Jinx. So
why do you think that?
Well, Jinx is with the Arashikage and the goons with the swords are with her.
How do you know she's with them?
Well, it looks like they kind of are arriving
okay, yes, I
together.
See a panel.
And...
Yeah. She's come in, okay, and there's goons behind her. I don't know. To me, it doesn't feel obvious, but maybe. I mean, that is the obvious answer, but it wasn't clear to me who they're with because she has no conversation with them. There's loads of bodies dead, and then who is this girl that Jinx is leaving with? Why is she taking a shine to that particular girl?
We don't know. Maybe this is someone who is important to the Arashikage clan, or maybe they've been hired to rescue this one specific person. So. Right. Yeah, they're taking this one girl and leaving the rest for Scarlett to deal with the mess.
Yep.
So after this sequence, we're sort of back home with Scarlett. She's noticed that someone's been, snooping about because she's put a bit of tape over the door and it's broken. Nice little inset panel there of Scarlett's keys. It's got a cactus there with the word on her keyring with the word "hug me," which was an addition of from the artist, sort of indicating that maybe Scarlett is a little bit prickly, can be a bit closed off to others. And there's Stalker, and this kind of made me think of like the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where sort of Nick Fury is going around, sort of gathering up Avengers. We're sort of seeing. Stalker here, sort of gathering up a team for the G.I. Joe project.
Yep. And he's kind of casual. He's just sitting there, and
yes.
He could have easily been offed or taken one to the back of the head there. But it's kind of game recognizes game, is it? So she knows he's potentially someone special, and he's obviously been monitoring her actions and her movements. So. He pretty much cuts straight to the chase within, a couple of pages, doesn't he?
He does, and he says that he feels safe because he's seen her file and she's not cavalier with life. I don't know if I'd, based on what we've seen, I think I might hesitate to agree with that completely because she's definitely. Maybe she's not killing people in this initial sequence. I think a lot of the dead people are left from the Arashikage. She's doing a lot of punching and whacking people with handbags and shooting a guy in the hand.
But she has also shown that she can't follow orders.
Yeah, true.
So,
and when we get to the ninjas later on, she does feel a little bit out there with some of her levels of violence. But anyway,
but Gorman said no, don't interrupt, and she's like, "F you, Gorman." But then she comes on to. There's a panel here where she says Gorman either knows that a missing in-action military asset, i.e. Jinx, has been located and either knows and cares and he screws it up and she never comes home, or he knows and he doesn't care. So I don't think we're ever going to get to know Gorman's real motivations or what he knows, but are we going to find out, and does it matter if we don't, about what mission Jinx was on when she went missing, or did she just go AWOL, not on a mission? It says missing in action military asset. So she was on a mission when she went missing. Do we need to know the details of that or not?
I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world if we don't, but I suspect we might find out. I would think we'd find out more about the last 2 years from Jinx, about what she was trying to do and what's happened in the intervening years. And they're not afraid to show a flashback. I mean, what's nice is that it's set in the modern day with Scarlett in the lead to her joining the Joes. This isn't all flashback like the G.I. Joe Scarlett declassified from Devil's Due, where it was literally start her from year dot and build her up to today. We're just seeing flashes of recent-ish time, and that's handled deftly. We've got a slightly different panel layout with the sort of slightly faded corners and things, and the color treatment in the kind of red tones is nicely handled. It's very, when we're getting flashbacks in comics, quite often it's not done especially well, and you can get a bit disorientated about where you are in time.
Yep.
But here there's absolutely no doubt. However, when we're talking about this sequence, there is that moment where Stalker says, "You two were closer than your files suggest." And some people reading this issue have kind of leapt to the conclusion that maybe they are more than just friends. I think it's fair to ask that question, because it seems like maybe Stalker's implying that she's describing solicits as a former partner. I think partner is a loaded kind of term. And then there's another moment later on when she sees Jinx for the first time in the compound, and she says, "There she is. She looks good." So she looks good. You can take that a few ways, but you could kind of read it a particular way. So
yes,
it's good that Kelly Thompson has been very clear in interviews about trying to clarify that she is a like a sister. It is a platonic, friendly relationship. But I don't necessarily blame anyone for maybe thinking that there might be something implied here, even if that wasn't the intent.
I mean, I wonder if, and I don't know. Kelly has, said that she didn't write them as anything more than friends, but I wonder if, in fact, she did, and then the issues were already in the can, and the editorial kind of quashed it and said, no, we want to change that.
I don't know. I think it's maybe sometimes as a writer, you kind of your intent, and you think that would be clearer than maybe how it's executed, because you know what's in your head.
Yeah.
But someone coming to something fresh, not knowing that, they can sort of project something else.
And then actually in issue 2, Jinx mentions something about what's his name. You're still upset about what's his name. Was she talking about Gorman, or was she talking about someone else in Scarlett's life, a male character in Scarlett's life? So it's in a flashback, so it's not Gorman. Page 14, issue 2. So Scarlett says, yes, probably sorry. And then Jinx says, you still pissed about what's his face. And this is a flashback, so it's not referring to Gorman, it's someone else.
Yeah, I read that as being that maybe Scarlett has recently broken up with a guy, because it's what's his face. Yeah. So, and that's sort of playing on her mind.
Yeah. But ultimately, it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a big thing. But then she suggests that they Netflix and chill. Well, she doesn't say Netflix and chill, but for Netflix marathon. Again, people might project Netflix marathon. Does that mean something else these days? Who's to say?
I'm not a stickler. Another thing, I'm not a stickler for canon or, what has gone before has to be the same. I'm all for people messing around with an IP and doing something completely different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got the Larry Hama canon, Marvel, that exists. That's always going to exist. You can't take it away from us. I don't want them to just try and do exactly the same thing. I want to see new and surprising things. And if they wanted to go a different way with Scarlett and Jinx, I wouldn't especially care, because we've got the ARA universe already. So if they want to, try doing something different, it doesn't actually bother me. What's more interesting is about sort of different interpretations, or just clarity of execution and intent.
Yeah.
In another interview, Kelly Thompson talked about her initial pitch was actually going to make it, I guess, clearer, the Jinx-Scarlett relationship, that Scarlett was going to be actually Jinx's adopted sister.
Right, okay.
And I guess with that in mind, it might make I think that would make it clearer that they're the more a sort of a sisterly relationship because of that,
yes.
The nature of that. But I think that was nixed by either Hasbro or Skybound editorial, that maybe it's just a bit a step too far in terms of changing the character.
Gotcha. And we've got to remember, look, at the end of the day, these are silly comic books. They're silly comic books that should not be taken seriously.
Agrees the man who regularly records 2 hours talking about a comic book. But I get the point.
It's just from when we go into issue 2. Some of the scenes in there, you could critically pick them apart about, why are there no guards, or why is, how has she defeated 5 ninjas, or that. I don't care. I just want if I enjoy the story, great. And there's way too much critical over-analyzation. I don't think that's a word. Over-analysis of stuff. Just read it and be happy, or don't enjoy it. You don't have to pick everything apart. Is my point. And even in issue 1 here, Stalker's saying Clan Arashikage, a rising power in the global arms race. How funny is that? I mean, a ninja clan in modern times is a rising power in the global arms race. I mean, it's so silly. It's like something out of a James Bond movie. It's let's not take them too seriously.
Yeah, and I think James Bond is definitely the tone that seems to be there for issue 1.
Have you done research? Are there still ninja clans operating in Japan?
Well, I don't know. If they're secret, then how do you know?
Yeah, but are they? If they were secret, they wouldn't be rising power in the global arms race, probably.
Maybe not.
And what global arms are the Arashikage supplying to the rest of the world?
Left and right arms, Chief.
Gotcha. Good.
Yeah.
The best kind.
Yep. We've got some. Well, they do talk about a mystery weapon that we don't know entirely what it is.
No, I'm still confused after reading issue 2 about what that is.
I don't think we're any the wiser yet.
Oh, okay.
What about this secret language that they've got in issue 1? What did you make of that?
Yes, so they leave kind of, like you say, secret coded scratches and markings around, and it's something that they've created between the two of them that no one else can crack. Handy, that. Deus Ex Machina. Boom. Love it.
Very good. So what else did we have? We had a brief appearance from Snowjob in issue 1. That's fun. I like the way that they've drawn him in that flashback with the tiki mug.
But I like the comparison as well. The panel above it is him, very seriously at the end of a sniper, or the right end of a sniper rifle, and clearly about to get them out of trouble, which may involve killing someone. And like you say, the next panel directly below, he's the life and soul of the party.
Yep. Works hard, plays hard.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. What next? We've got then sort of the ninja compound, and Scarlett sort of demonstrating quite how handy she is with sort of hand-to-hand combat, swords, all of the rest of it. And there's this sort of giant double-page splash there as well, which is sort of employing this thing that they call the DeLuca effect, which is where kind of a character is moving through the kind of the space of the panel, often using background as well. So rather than it being multiple sort of static snapshots, it's kind of implying a movement in a space as you go. What did you make of this one? I liked the attempt, but I found the execution a little bit confusing as to how many ninjas there were and kind of the sequencing. Yeah,
interestingly, I've just been looking over some old Nightwing books today, and Scott McDaniel is a big fan on covers and interiors in that late 90s, early noughties run of having Nightwing bounce across building tops in all different poses, and dust is flying up, so there's a lot of movement and energy in it, and you can clearly see the path the character's taking. Here I can't see the path Scarlett's taking, or is that not the point? It's just almost like a montage, or are we supposed to be being able to follow her through the pages? Because like you, I can't really follow it. It just seems like a lot of frenetic action going on.
Because normally it would be you sort of be reading kind of top left to the right and down, so you'd kind of want to read it as an arc from the top left coming around to probably the bottom right.
Yeah, and this goes in reverse, doesn't it? It almost starts bottom right and goes up to finishes on the
Yeah,
top
it's
left.
hard to say because you kind of got this guy with the scarred eye who's sort of traveling down left to right, so he's sort of chasing and then clanging, which I think is a kind of top
you
left
think
down
that's
to
the
bottom
same
right.
guy?
Yeah, because he's got this distinctive scar above his eye. But then also we're starting the sequence with her standing on top of someone groaning. So where did this guy come from, or is that?
I think that's the end of the sequence.
It's
but yes, it's a little bit confusing.
Indeed.
Nice art though, nice art. You know what I mean? In terms of stylistically, I'm a fan of this dude's art.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about Marco Ferrari, the artist. I see a lot of like Stuart Immonen in his style in terms of sort of some of the cartooniness to a degree, like a bit like Next Wave. But then there's also a lot of manga in there in terms of approach to composition. There's the simpleness of some of the faces and some of the shading, and then he'll have like these quiet insert panels, like a close up of a cup, which is kind of thing that you'd get in manga as well. So I like that he's definitely different, a different artist again to everything else that we've seen in the Energon universe so far. And he does very well, given that he doesn't necessarily have a massive resume of work to date.
For sure. And another thing, a small point here, which you don't see a lot, and I like it here, it works well, is the panels are thick black bordered, which is not generally something you see in modern comics, but
yeah, they are thick, aren't they?
Black borders, yeah. Which I don't know, I like it. It frames the panels nicely, but you can also kind of see underneath them or to the side, almost like blue line pencils that haven't been rubbed out on some of the some of the borders, which is quite cool. Now, how does Scarlett know who the Hardmaster is? Because she says, doesn't she call him the Hardmaster? Oh no, she says, "My apologies for disrupting your sanctuary, Hardmaster." My name is Shana O'Hara. So she either Stalker's fed her the information possibly, or she already knows. But that doesn't make them so secret, this clan, if people can easily recognise them by facial recognition.
Yeah, so I think the answer there is that Stalker has briefed her. He says, "I have some experience with the Clan Arashikage. I was trained there. ... in part."
Yes. Well, there you go. You've answered my question. That's why you're the main man on the podcast.
So again, it's sort of interesting. They're establishing up front Stalker's connection to the Arashikage. You know, as we know from the ARA universe, that he sort of served with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. So there's some mysterious back history there that we might find out about the line.
I love this big dude in purple and black next to the Hardmaster.
Yeah, he's not named here, but a purple Arashikage ninja might hint at possibly it's dice, as in slice and dice.
Yep.
You know, it's possibly not. You know, he's just wearing something that hints at a little bit of purple. But
and what do you think of Storm Shadow's outfit? You happy with that design?
It's cool. It's quite pared back, isn't it? Sort of hearkening to some of the iconic elements of past costumes, but sort of doing something a little bit unique as well. Because I don't think this is based on a specific toy, but sort of trying to bring a little bit of everything. But a lot of version 1 in there, a lot, some of the hints of version 2 without the camo. Yeah. It's a nice, simple design, I think.
Yeah. And again, kind of just touching on what I touched on earlier, Scarlett, I don't necessarily need to know what's happened with whatever unit she was in with Gorman as her major, and is she completely expelled now from that unit and military service? I don't really need to know the fallout from that, or why all of a sudden Stalker is trusting her, or why she's just immediately dropping everything to jump on a helicopter. I'm more than happy with the pacing of how it got to the end there. So I was very, very pleased with issue 1.
Yeah, I think she's done with that Gorman as her boss. He says, "You can proactivate right out my unit, soldier. I believe your contract is up for renewal anyway."
Yep.
So yeah, I think the bridges are burned there with goddamn Gorman. So issue 2, it felt like much more streamlined, much more simple stories. There's just a couple of beats. Scarlett escapes from her bonds, fights some ninjas, then gets sent on a mission to infiltrate this skyscraper. So it's a lot more streamlined, simple to follow kind of event.
Yeah. Interactions with, some of the members of the Arashikage, obviously beforehand.
If you call it interaction, is like throwing a throwing star into someone's skull. Thunk.
Yeah. Well, she's kind of trapped in isolation almost in a compounded area with glass windows and doors, zip locked to the ankles and wrists to the chair. But unfortunately, these fools didn't think to cut her open and find the hidden razor blade. Yeah,
didn't think to explore some of her wounds.
Yes.
I don't know if this was intentional, but I thought it was interesting that, well, that said, they did find the pick in her mouth.
They did.
But I don't know if this was intentional, but I thought that this might be a callback to the classic issue 21, where Scarlett is in that kind of oubliette dungeon.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And if you remember, she's able to escape from that by taking a bobby pin from her hair
that's right.
and unpicking her lock. And this is sort of like turning that up to 11. Instead of taking a pin from her hair, she's extracting a hidden razor blade from a wound in her side.
Yeah.
Crikey, I think.
And
is
also
all I
the
could say.
connection to Jinx must be very strong, because in those first 2 panels, she outlines an almost implausibly unfeasible plan, and that the objective is gain access to the Arashikage stronghold, re-establish contact with Jinx, find and, if possible, secure the rumoured weapon and stay alive. Now, she's not got much information. I don't know how many days she's been, this is post the Monaco scenario, but she's more than happy to jump off that helicopter and try and do this impossible mission. It's more than anything probably with Jinx as the driving force for her. So there's definitely a strong connection.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about, what we can rely on from our friends, maybe we can ask them to fill in for an interview podcast at short notice when you can't make it. But I don't know that I'd ever actually ask you, Chief, to infiltrate a ninja compound for me.
Well, that's too kind of you. I would say no, by the way.
Okay. Well, without being mean, Scarlett.
No, I'm not even at the top of the list. I'm like option whatever at the bottom. Anyway.
So, I mean, I was talking before about maybe Scarlett sort of, non-lethal treatment from that Stalker talked to, feeling safe. She's not nearly so kind to ninjas, and pretty brutal treatment of these 4 or 5 ninjas that find her as she's escaping. It seems pretty lethal. Two of those have got throwing stars to their head. One of them seems to be belly sliced with a sword, and another one chest slice. And
I mean, she's broken away from the chair. She's got this razor blade out of her gut, and she's got out of the chair. She's free, and the guard spotted her, and the guard says, "Get everyone," and she says, "You'll need more than everyone." Incredible. What if there's 500 people in this place? I mean, she doesn't know. Does she know? She's done terrible reconnaissance here. She doesn't know if there's 10 people, 50 people, 500 people. But anyway, she, like you say, she manages to take these guys down. And in one of the panels, like I say, I'm looking at the one now, I think it's page 8 possibly. She stomps a chair, and you hear this slam, and you get all this kind of rough, wiggly lines around it, which is the Daniel Warren Johnson style. And above that, and then below that, another artistic style I kind of see is it's almost Frank Miller-esque ears on these ninjas. They're not ears, they are just the top of the ninja headdress, whatever. It's probably got an official name, whatever the ninjas wear on their heads. But they've got very clearly defined ear shapes, and it kind of, I don't know, almost Frank Miller-ish to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've done a sort of good job at trying to make these ninjas distinct.
Yes.
In this initial one, we've got 5.
And,
there, you've got a top knot, a guy with a covered face, a guy with kind of sort of Batman-y ears, and another guy with a hood. So it's good. It's good that they're sort of trying to help you track who the people
are. But consistently inept. So that's good. But yeah, they get ninja stars, two different types of ninja stars in the head. Now, I don't know how much force, someone needs to do some research on this, not on actual living humans, but tell me how much force is required for a throwing star to stick in someone's head.
Well, one of them seems to be getting up from a ninja star to the head, because he's the one with the size, the Electra style, kind of miniature dagger things. And he's got, as he's standing up, he's got a shuriken stuck in his forehead. Yeah. Scarlett bounces off the wall and knocks him to the floor with a sort of a gra and a sort of a bloody kind of spray from the floor.
Yeah. So, well, interestingly, 2 points of fact that aren't maybe that interesting, but in wrestling, when they're especially in the old days, when there were what they called juicing, when wrestlers used to juice, and there'd be a lot of blood in the match. The majority, if you hit your head on the post or something and it cut you, that's called hard way, where you've actually been damaged and bleeding, not intentionally. But otherwise, what a lot of wrestlers would do, they'd have razor blades, and then in the match, someone would be in the ring getting all the crowd going. The other person's down under the ring, and they cut their forehead with a razor blade because supposedly the forehead is a place where it's where a lot of blood will flow rapidly, but it's not super dangerous because it's not close to any main veins or anything.
Right.
So that's an area where you will always see wrestlers bleeding from, is the forehead generally. And so maybe this throwing star in the head hasn't done too much damage at the front of his head. And the other thing is, I always heard, I don't know if this is true, but if you get bit by a shark, the best place to get bit is on the head, because your cranium is very strong, and also the shark bites you and it thinks, oh, this is not a seal, and swims away. Whereas if it bites your leg, it might actually try and bite your leg off. So the summary is throwing a throwing star into someone's forehead is not a good idea. There are better places to throw that throwing star. That was my point.
I see. But Storm Shadow sort of intervenes, and he seems very forgiving. He seems very cold-blooded here. That he's not overly worried about these ninjas sort of lying in a bloody mess on the floor.
No. Almost like it was a test or something.
Well, yeah, it does. And, if I were one of those ninjas, on the other side of the test, I wouldn't be completely happy about it.
No, because some of them are dead.
Yeah, but sit down, have a cup of tea, and talk about some plans.
Yeah. She sees Jinx down there training some of the ninjas. She's been gone missing 2 years. But then we do get a flash. So I'm thinking, has she only been 2 years in training as a ninja? But then you get a flashback to obviously before she went missing, and she is actually training a younger Scarlett. So she is obviously proficient in the martial arts before she ended up in Japan.
Yeah. So she's definitely an expert already by that point. And if we were to think in mind of A-Ra kind of canon, that maybe she grew up in a ninja clan in Japan, and that's how she kind of got those skills to begin with. But
when Scarlett says to Storm Shadow post that flashback, she says she's good. She's the only woman I've seen here. Are there more like her? And Storm Shadow says there is no one else like Jinx. Is that just a cool throwaway line, or does that portend to something else, do you think?
I don't know. Is it implied that Scarlett will never be as good as her?
Yeah, don't know. Listeners, write in and tell us what you think.
So what have we got? We've got kind of exposition lining up this mission that they want her to go on to demonstrate her qualities. What are those qualities? It is loyalty, honor, sacrifice.
Yeah, we still don't really know what she's offered. In the end of issue 1, she's kind of laying down a sword and she's offering her services to the Hardmaster and the clan as a whole. But we don't really know in what guise, to just give up her old life and then just become one of the clan, or are they not suspicious, or are they sending her on this particular mission because they are suspicious? A lot of kind of unanswered questions, some of which I don't need to know the answer to, but some, if pop up, okay, cool. It's kind of open-ended almost. But as with any kind of thing, when you see this in movies or whatever, someone going in as a gaijin or as an outsider going into a new group, you're quite often given a test or a task to prove yourself.
Yeah, and they say in the kind of the narration from Scarlett later on, she says, judged competent enough to succeed at the suicide mission, expendable enough that not returning from the suicide mission is palatable.
Yeah.
So,
That's key, yeah.
They can, for them, maybe it doesn't matter too much if she's up to joining their clan or not, but she can be a useful tool in the meantime.
Yeah, and what she's got to do, she's got to retrieve an ancient weapon of unusual origin. Unusual has been bolded in the text. So will it be a person, do you think? Or
where's that? So there's
a nice cityscape scene
in the cityscape.
Of the helicopter coming, nice, brightly lit up. I don't know where this is. Have they mentioned it where it is?
This is Tokyo.
It's Tokyo.
Yeah, so that's a good text box to hone in on, Chiefy. An ancient weapon of unusual origin, unusual being bolded. Given that we're in the Energon universe, could that be?
Good shout.
Unusual could be from Cybertron,
could be
or
the Matrix.
From places unknown. Yeah, could be something connected to that.
Okay. Yep. Interesting. Nice touch. And she's given the schematics, and then given a brief outline of what she's got to do, and then off you go, love.
Away you go, banzai.
So yeah, and then you get some nice framing sequences here of her planting explosives and making her way in, and more intrigue to come for sure.
Absolutely, and we're left on a cliffhanger of her jumping into what they describe as next death trap on that last page.
Who is on that last page? Someone is saying 2 teams converging on her now. And then there's like an expletive. She jumped. I repeat, all teams subject just jumped. Who's saying this? That's a code black, full lockdown.
I think that is we're hearing like the security for the building. So her adversaries at this point that we're sort of listening in on the chitter chatter over their radios. Have they been tipped off by the Arashikage that someone's coming perhaps? I don't know. It's just there's no indication that they've where do they spot her? Where in the issue do they spot her? It's on that page after she sort of gets onto the building, and then is sort of we've got that half-page splash of her full figure. There's that thing where it goes squawk, top floor breach, no eyes on. Repeat, no eyes on.
Okay, so she's triggered some kind of alarm as she's gone.
Yeah, in. She's gone in. Yeah.
Okay. And then they've got her on video camera. Okay, yes.
Yep.
Time stamped, and then they're sending teams to get her as she just jumps headlong down a shaft.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
But I mean, this is about just sort of overall thoughts for this one is that it's about as much as we've ever seen of Scarlett in a sort of solo mission. That most of the time we've seen her up to this point in various media, she is kind of more of a foil for Snake Eyes or for Duke, not really seeing too much of her as a solo character doing badass things.
Yeah.
So, from that point, it is nice to really sort of linger on Scarlett a little bit more and sort of see her, on her own, without sort of being encumbered by too much of a cast around her, just being, badass and capable.
Yeah. And in this issue too, we had no new introductions, I don't think, did we? No new introductions of characters, and the tenuous G.I. Joe links were completely devoid in this issue.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's good first 2 issues for me.
Very good. What did I see on I Spies? I think I've talked about them. I don't need to talk about. The only I Spy that I've not covered as we've gone along really is the tattoo on Jinx's arm, which is a sort of a call to the classified design, which has a prominent tattoo on her right arm. That's her right arm, rather than us looking
is there? Where's the twist coming in this? Do you think everyone when they write a story they always put a little twist in, don't they? Is it going to be that Jinx has gone full native and is now a baddie, or is it going to be, like you say, that it seems obvious now that the thing that Scarlett's after is the twist that it's not just a weapon in the conventional sense of being a gun or something like that. It's going to, maybe that's the twist.
I think Jinx being full baddie is unlikely because she's been leaving those messages for Scarlett.
Yes.
So I think that seems less likely, given that has been happening. I think the big twist is probably going to be the weapon.
Yes.
What the weapon is. Is that something? Is that something Transformers-y?
Yeah.
Or,
and also,
I
guess because the cover of issue 3 in the back of issue 2, suggests that something's either gone wrong with the mission, or Jinx and Scarlett now have to work together to fend off some adversaries.
True. Yeah, it looks like maybe once we're in issue 3, going by that cover, maybe they end up having to work together. Oh, actually, although there's another variant cover, the cover E, the Eric Canetti variant, which is a great looking cover, by the way. It looks like they're fighting, so maybe not.
Right. Okay.
We shall see.
Keep them guessing. Keep them guessing,
indeed.
Yeah. Are you? What's your collection technique or format for these books? Are you just getting the A covers of all of these Skybound books, or are you picking and choosing some variants? How are you collecting them?
I'm doing place and space standing order, so I'm getting these sent to me as they come out, and not being too finicky about covers. So I've just been getting the standard A's for these.
Sure.
If it was a flat choice, if I could have one of anything, it wouldn't necessarily always be the A, but I'm not precious about that. Cool. That's okay.
It's the interiors that matter.
Exactly, and I can always see the picture of the other covers on the screen and enjoy them.
I think you shouted out Forbidden Planet UK have got some sales on at the moment, haven't they, on some of these covers?
They do, yeah. If you're in the UK, it might still be ongoing. If you're into the variants, have a look on the Forbidden Planet web store. They're doing some quite, big discounts on some of the variants. So, definitely check them out.
I saw some of the covers from £1.19, through to like £1.80 or something. So, cheaper than when they came out.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Let's do a Yo-Joage score. So it's always difficult, isn't it, with when you're just looking at one issue and two or a couple of issues. I think we've got enough to base a score on. I think I'm enjoying this, and I'm liking the way that it's been handled, and I'm excited for how it will turn out. I think very solid. I think something like. Yeah, solid 8. Let's go 8. Why not?
Nice. That's solid. I'm going to go a 6.75.
Okay, very good. A normal person's 11 out of 10. Excellent.
Yeah. By normal person, you mean idiots. Apologies to all the idiots out there. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, good to have you back on, Chief, and for this little whistle stop tour of Scarlett. Maybe we'll check in again as the story comes to a head.
Yeah. Well, I'm an unemployed bum, so I'm not doing anything else. That doesn't sound very gratifying, does it, or appreciative?
Never mind.
I'll find a slot in my busy schedule for you. That's what I meant to say.
Exactly, which is wide open. Okay, cool. Before we go, let's just check in to see if we've got any letters into the pit.
Postbox pit, this is where you can send in your thoughts. Mark and Tim will hear it, and then we'll discuss it. It's really nice to hear from our biggest fans.
Yo, Talking Joe. So, got Scarlett #1 today. Good comic. I do prefer Duke and Cobra Commander, but it was really good. I like that Jinx and Scarlett clearly have some sort of history, and Stalker seems to have a history with the Arashikage clan. I wonder what that history is. Would it be not only Storm Shadow, but a certain character decked out in all black who doesn't speak? I guess we'll have to keep reading to find out, but love that bit. Also, Stalker in the comic in general, after Duke. I guess that's where Stalker's story goes. But I did love the reveal of Storm Shadow at the end, though he is in all the posters for Scarlett, and which will be the second printing cover. I also like Snowjob having a role, even though it's Arashikage heavily based. But it's cool. Also, Scarlett being a badass. That's awesome. Well, now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Thank you, Scotty. There we go. Voicemail this time. So if you want to let us know what you are thinking of any of the current issues, then you can visit us at talkingjoe.co.uk. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. There is a voicemail button, and you can leave us a message too. So next time on Talking Joe, we'll be continuing to look at the Energon universe with all the issues as they come out. We've got Scarlett and Destro ongoing. We've also got A-Ra from Larry Hama, which is coming out once a month. And I'm sure there'll be more besides. We've still got some coverage from the Joe Fest convention, from some of the interviews that we did there, which will be making their way out onto the podcast feed as well. So, and if you want to get early access to some of that content that already exists, you can visit Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. You can be one of the cool kids, just like Richard, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Ryan, Simon, Chris, and Joe, who are all getting early access to episodes, as well as exclusive content and a warm, fuzzy feeling inside for supporting us and paying off some of those hosting bills. And, you know, for free, you can always like and subscribe, so you can be there as the episodes drop. You can find us on all of the normal places like Twitter, our Facebook group, where lots of exciting news gets dropped and shared and discussed, and all of that good stuff. You can find Tim in the normal places, even though he's not here. So check out A Real American Book. He'll be publishing his write-up of the Joe Fest convention very soon. And also, if you're buying your comics, why not head to Hub Comics in Somerville, or Atomic Abe if you just want some cool YouTube content talking about some of that geek culture-y stuff. Chief,
Yes.
where can people find you best these days?
You can find me on Instagram at ArmorGeekdom if you want to go and check out what I'm doing over there. I post just a few stories and posts every now and again. I sell on Whatnot, the online social media marketplace, under ArmorGeekdom, and I am doing the Talking Joe. No, I'm doing Talking Nuts, a Peanuts podcast, available on all your favourite pod players.
Very good. And even if you're not into Peanuts, just sort of the first few minutes of each episode, getting right into the latest thoughts of the Chief and the chaos that ensues.
It's basically just early episodes of Talking Joe, but substitute Joe for Peanuts strips.
Yeah, so if you want to hear people talking about peanut-based snacks and their latest sort of house disasters and things, you can go there for that quality content. And,
and then the first 20 minutes then log off.
when they start talking about the actual peanut strip, maybe just skip.
Yeah.
But that's fun. That's fun anyway. I'm still a regular listener of that, all of these episodes in, and it's all great stuff. So with that all said and done, I think we are concluded with Scarlett. But until next time, remember that...
Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Very good. Laters.
See ya.
But as we conclude, Chief, do you want to do the singing this time?
Someone's going to have to give me line.
I'll say, that's us done, but remember, and then you go, Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Sure.
Okay.
Nobody beats G.I. Joe. No, not G.I. Joe. Talking Joe. Nobody beats Talking Joe, a real internet... No, what is it? Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
That's right.
Okay. Nobody beats G.I. Joe, an international podcast.
Talking Joe. Nobody beats Talking Joe.
Fine.